That's the one thing I left that I cut off the album that I wish I had left on. And if
Yeah.
he hadn't have said Holy Joe, I would have. You know, but there's still Boyles. You know, there's still Crumps. There's still the same people.
Yeah.
Ronnie Hawkins told me once. Would actually tell my old lady this that she asked him if he'd ever come back south because he's been in Canada a long time. Conway Twitty called him and told, when he was in Canada, called him and said, look, man, there are people up here who love it. Come up here and you'll never have to leave. And my old lady asked him if he'd ever come back to Arkansas, and he said no. That he didn't like the South because there were one group of people who had everything and ran everything, and they weren't going to let anybody else have it. And I think that's true. It doesn't bother me as to the extent that it bothered Hawkins.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there may be, but I think of my. Will Shade told me that the way they made their money was once a year. Mr. Crump would hire him, the same Mr. Crump who didn't like it, would hire him to play on a private train car to Hot Springs. They'd go down there for a week to the races, and the jug band would stay in the car. They'd sleep in all the Crump and the Muckty Mucks would go on into one of the big hotels. I'm sure they'd leave the train car out there in the train yard, and Will and the jug band would stay on the car the whole time. And he said that's why he got to playing the zinc tub bass, because Will was a piano player and a guitar player. He said, but he had no place to put the money. They would to get the biggest tub they could, turn the tub over and fill it up with silver dollars. And they just played on the tray. But they didn't. It's like Furry is a myth to think of them playing on Beale Street or in the area, because they didn't. And if they did, there was no way to make money because nobody had any money.
Yeah.
To pay.
Well,
them.
they never got into the theaters and the places that did have money.
Well, it was legitimate. There was legitimate music in there, or semi-legitimate music. As there is now. People, it's not just Mr. Crump that don't like it. People don't like it. Nobody really, But there is that once or twice a year when we used to play in rock and roll as a kid. We made our living at Cotton Carnival. We played fraternity parties and that kind of junk all during the year just to keep the band together. And then once a year, you played every damn night and made as much money as you could make. And played with striptease dancers, which has always been my idea of what you should do.
Yeah. Well,
the tribal idea, that the men play and the women dance. That's I think that's the way it should be. I've always.
And throw bananas to the crowd.
Yeah.
I interviewed a guy yesterday, day before yesterday, who played in Lunsford's original band here in Manassas. And
the band he took to the Cotton Club was full of kids. It was a high school band.
Yeah, Chickasaw Syncopators. It was his high school band. But he said the same thing, that that the jug bands and the country people. He said they played in the park. Street corners in the park, but that they didn't play. He also said that there was
but they made their living recording. See, and they were which they were resented by the legitimate musicians for. They would get
most
paid.
of those legitimate musicians didn't even know it.
Yeah,
from what I'm told, Memphis Slim didn't even know that they'd ever recorded anything here, and a lot of those people didn't know about it. But there was supposed to have been as much music outside, off Beale Street, as much or more music off Beale Street in some of these clubs around town as there was
in that area,
on Beale Street.
Oh, it was whorehouses and gambling joints on Beale Street, and nobody, you don't have anybody playing in a whorehouse but a piano player, which is why there's so many great piano players from New Orleans, pure and simple, is because there was piano players in whorehouses and bands in clubs.
Yeah.
And the great piano players who come from here, Roosevelt Sykes, that's what he is. He's a whorehouse piano player.
Yeah.
There wasn't pianos nowhere but whorehouses and churches. There wasn't but two ways to play.
Yeah.
And they like a guitar, and nobody wanted to see guitars.
Yeah.
And of course, it was a lot of blues, and jug band is conceptually black music for white people anyway. I mean, that was the idea they had then in terms of making money. Furry's act has always been for white people. It's not new. I thought, as a kid, when I first knew Furry, I thought, this must be strange for him playing for white people. It's not new. He's never played for anybody but white people.
Yeah. Well, in the whole minstrel show circuit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's
The medicine shows. That's what,
medicine
you know,
shows. And, yeah.
his audience was, you know, it's been I mean, I'm sure, well, as we all know, there's a lot of black people tremendously offended by it for that reason. But, you know how idiotic I think that is.
Yeah. What's besides the fact that it's almost a dead form, why'd you leave jug bands off your record? And as soon as you answer, I'll tell you what I said about it.
Off of that? Oh,
yeah.
Well, honestly, there's more because I wanted to make 2 records. There's a specific jug band piece that I wanted as the introduction to the second record, which is I can't think of the name of the band. It's got a jug introduction.
Are there people?
It's a classic. Oh, sure. I could put together a jug band.
Jug?
Yeah. Oh, sure. I can play jug as far as that goes. I mean, there are lots of, you know. I think Crossway is the greatest living washboard player. It has been for some time, you know. And we had a real serious jug band. And there's a jug. Of course, there's a jug aspect. It's not left off because the Beale Street Sheiks and the new Beale Street Sheiks and Mudboy and the Neutrons, in the terms of the way we did On the Road Again, are not that different. I mean, there are no electric instruments on any of that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I put in the review. I said that you kind of did that, only you did it more in bigger bands and jug bands.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to make that sound kind of like a combination between the jug band and the pit band at the Palace, you know, with the 2 strings and the little horns. I regret not having a clarinet. I regret not having Charlie Loing specifically on several things.
Who's that?
The kid who one of the owners of Strings and Things. He plays with French embouchure and with that lip tucked under. And it sounds like he's got no teeth, you know. Instead of so everybody bites to read. He plays like he's got a bad feeling. He plays like that. He's playing on my record. That's him on Dixie Pride, and on Cooter's on Boomer Story. That's him. I love the way he sounds. I wish he was on the record. But also I wanted to have fife and drum bad. I regret not having fife and drum.
Would you use the Gravel Springs people, or would you do?
I would probably do it phony.
Yeah.
In terms of what I really would do.
Well, you know, I think fife and drum at this point, from those guys, is kind of funny.
Well, there's only the fife is real. There's not any real drummers. You know that story about Napoleon Strickland and the other guys splitting up. See, the real
Napoleon and Arthur Turner.
Yeah, together formed what would be the real. And see, all the drummers that are playing now are like way on down the line, and it's a lot
They're
less.
Kids now.
Yeah, it's a lot less. Although it's still pretty African, it's a lot less traditional, and they don't dance anymore. They used to dance when they played, and it was exactly like something, you know, from a Tarzan movie. And the dancing was at least half of it. Barth has tapes of the real, the real thing that are totally unlike what you hear now. I mean, and more. You know, Lonnie Young and the Young brothers of the thing on the Atlantic, they were supposed to be on a couple of blues festivals, and they came to one a week late. And they drank cough syrup and were real kickback. You know, they dance too. I mean, it's a whole scene that they don't do anymore. The Napoleon Strickland thing is just not.
Well, Arthur's playing fife now.
Yeah,
he was originally the drummer.
Yeah, but it's still he plays it in a traditional way. I mean, he's not.
Yeah, it's just that they. Well, I saw him at one of those Center for Southern Folklore parties.
Yeah.
In fact, I think you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
And
Randall has a tape with them that I think is videotape that I think is better than the Center's.
Yeah, except that Randall just. I mean, he shows people eating hot dogs too much.
It's too theatrical, but it's still he got them like Bobby Ray. He got closer to them than the Center did.
Yeah, I've seen.
He got closer to when they do. You got to move. And he reaches for the 4 chord each time, you know, on the flute. I think that's really nice. Really nicer than anything the Center's got on.
Well, the Center's thing, the whole story behind that was they had 40 minutes worth of film to make a 20-minute film.
That's all they shot.
And that's all they could shoot. And they shot. That's why there's so many shots of slopping the pigs and bridling your horse, because they wasted all that film on all that color shit without getting any. You know, getting the
music,
and getting the music. So that was one of the.
Randall was fascinated.